Welcome to the Encouragement Conquers All podcast with Justin Fatica, the podcast for people who want to learn how to be the most encouraging person on the planet and enhance their encouragement superpowers. Now here's your host, Justin.
I'm excited to be here today. I don't know if you know who I am. My name is Justin Fatica, and each week we have a podcast, and every week we encourage people. And I don't know if any of you have seen our docuseries of encouraging the world through mentorship, through hope, through basketball. You got to check that out. And also the book that's come out. The book is Encouragement Conquers All. Encouragement Conquers All. Really, I got motivated to do this podcast because I realized that there are so many people that need encouragement. There's so many people that need hope, and they don't need to be discouraged anymore. You know, we need to find ways to encourage people to greatness, to hope, to togetherness. And, you know, it's a challenge out there. And I don't know what side you're on. I don't know if you're Democrat, you're Republican. I don't know if you're no faith or you're faith. I don't know where you stand now, but at the end of the day, are you encouraging people? That's what I want to know. Are you encouraging someone? Are you bringing hope to someone? How are you doing that? And that's your role. And that's what we're here to talk about. So if you're about encouragement, you're at the right place. This next guest, I'm gonna have on. She actually works with me, so it's very interesting. All right, you get your, hopefully this goes well, or maybe, she'll have to quit her job because it might not go so well. But I do know that this person is going to talk about today an unbelievable topic on how death is encouraging. How death is encouraging. It might not feel encouraged, but death is an encouragement. This lady actually is a mother of 10 kids. 10 kids. I can't believe she has time to work. All right. That she has to do it. She actually runs the finances for our mission to help young people, our mission to help kids struggling, young people all across the country. She runs our finances. She has a blog. She's an author. She runs her family business as well with her husband. I mean, I don't know how you can have time for anything, but she has time for us today. So I'd like to bring on Pullano. Karen, what's going on? It's interesting being here today. We work together every day, but now we're going to do a podcast.
Awesome.
What are your thoughts? What are your hopes for today? That's what I want to know.
Oh gosh, I am whatever I have to share is the Lord's story. It's not mine. So if you can encourage people.
One thing I can share is she is an author. She actually had her write in the book that came out on Encouragement Conquers All, 8 principles on how to be the most encouraging person on the planet. Like my little goal here, I always have a little goal, is that we'll have little encouragers. Like if you're watching the show, you're going out to encourage somebody, and you're one of those people that I would say are like one of the big encouragements in my life and in other people's lives, because your story really, like you share in the book, is about laughing, crying, and believing. And maybe you could share a little bit about your life and how you've come about to that death has become an encouragement for you.
Sure. Yeah. So as you mentioned, we have 10 children. We've been married almost 29 years here. And about 15 years ago, our oldest son, Michael, was diagnosed with a brain tumor when he was just 3 years old. He was sick for about 9 months, and our family journeyed through, a real crucible, tough time with that. And before he passed away at the age of 4 in 2008. And it was through that experience that we really grew together as a family, that, we cried together. We had to figure out how to, find our way again as a family with this huge, tragedy, trauma, and hole in our family. So I found that I came to my faith truly at that time, but it wasn't necessarily true for my kids. My kids needed a different way. They needed a different, a different avenue, a different venue. They were young. They were all at different places, all at different ages. They had different relationships with their brother and with one another. So I learned a lot and struggled a lot through that. I struggled a lot to kind of get to this place where I can hear what you say, and I'm like, you're so right, and you've been such a great encouragement to me. I hear your voice in my head, like, right, be the greatest encourager ever, because it's so important. The kids really need that. So after Michael died, probably 5 years after Michael died, I'm trying to remember all the dates, but our oldest daughter was in a car accident. She was 18 years old, and she was killed in a car accident. So we were back in that same place of trauma and death and grieving. And again, now the younger ones that weren't as impacted when Michael died were old enough to be super impacted. So my family has sort of had these traumas impact most of them. And again, like I could point to so many. Of course, we cried together. That's a given, as you can imagine.
Of course.
There was a lot of tears, there was a lot of crying. But one thing I didn't really, it's not as obvious. Like you'd think it's really obvious that, we all cried together. But what I've learned, what I really came to understand is I did not cry with my kids the way that I needed to and the way that they needed me to. Because there's it's a very vulnerable and very intimate thing. But I think like as a mom, I didn't want to like put my sorrow and my tears on them. And I didn't want them to be worried about their mom. They already had their own suffering and their own struggles. So it wasn't my instinct to cry with them. It was my instinct to hide my tears and to cry alone. And that was the model that they followed. Really, that it was their instinct to cry alone too. So I've learned how important it is to really share that intimacy of tears together through struggle. But what was natural to me, what I grew up with, my mom and dad first evangelized me through their laughter.
Yeah.
They really did. If I really think about that, there was always something to laugh about. There was always joy. There was always laughter. They may not have been sitting me down catechizing me, but there was laughter. And I don't know what we laughed about. I just remember that we shared that. And to me, where there's laughter, there's hope in life, and there's the knowledge, whether you can name it or not, of the reason for your true joy and true hope. And so that was easy for me to kind of bring my kids to was the laughter piece. If you laugh, they will come, and it drew them and it drew them out.
Yeah, a few things you're sharing about that I think are important. Number one, I start off this show saying death is an encouragement. And why I say that is when you hear somebody that talks about, and you're one of those people, I see it all the time, heard the story how many times, and every time it encourages me because you have hope, even though someone, a toddler, a teenager passed away. I mean, I don't know many parents out there that can bring joy from death, but how do you do that? How do you bring joy out of a teenager and a toddler passing away? How can that be something of an encouragement? I mean, most people say that's the most discouraging, thing ever. I was on another podcast with Mike Lindstrom. I was talking about basically how encouragement, like you get encouragement from discouragement. Because you learn so much when you're discouraged. So how have you taken death and made it an encouragement?
Well, like what you said at the beginning, it doesn't feel good.
Of course.
Nothing about this felt good. Some of the most horrific days of my life. But at the heart of it, I always go back to this moment when Michael died, and he died at home with us, and I was holding him for the final time to say my goodbyes. And he had been very sick and very in pain for some weeks, and I hadn't held him in a long time. So it was, my final moment holding his earthly body. And I was flooded with just the knowledge and the truth. Like he can't come back to me, but I can get to him. And so that's really driven me. And what that is the hope that we have of the home we're made for and our real life together, and that we'll see one another again, and that he's still alive now, and we're separated for a time, and and all the things that I know to be true became real.
And so what you're saying is for heaven is what gives you hope.
Yes.
And my goal is there's somebody watching right now that doesn't have faith. There's somebody watching right now that does have faith, or they're struggling their faith, or maybe they had somebody pass away, and they say, hey, what am I working for? Because a lot of times we're just working for these earthly things that will come and go. And that doesn't keep me going. I mean, at least not for me. You know, what keeps me going is that there's something more that live through and for than just here and now. And something else you brought up that I really like is that, and I think a lot of psychologists would talk about this. A lot of parents, like, we cry alone. You know, there's parents out there and there's kids, young people. You're a young person out there. Speak on how important it is, because for me, I always say, don't waste your tears. Let's quit wasting our tears on ourselves. Our tears aren't meant to be selfish tears. Like where we go to our room, poor me, look what I've been through. That's why we have so much discouragement in the world. How encouraging is it? Like, speak on both of this. How many times have you cried with a friend when they were listening to you because you were going through that suffering with your kids? And then on vice versa, when has somebody come to you and cried with you and said, hey, look, this is what I'm going through. I'm crying with you. How is both of those ways encouraging? What we're saying is crying is encouraging too.
It is. It's a great intimacy. It's a great gift that you can give to someone, you know, to be willing to enter into what they're going through and suffer with them. And, you know, when it comes to my kids, like, sometimes what is important to them, in my head knowledge, I could say, okay, this is silly. Like, this will be over in 5 minutes. We have to get through it. But really, if they receive that I have entered in and that I see them, I hear them, and I care about them, that's a great gift that I can give to them if their, you know, feelings can move me.
Is there a kid that you've cried with that you remember that moment? I cried with this kid and shared with them about, you know, your children that passed and said, oh man, and that helped them?
Yeah. You know what? I could share something. I hope she won't mind, but, you know, my oldest was closest to Anna. All my kids were in pairs. So they all had a pair, and she lost her pair after 18 years.
For sure.
And this past Christmas, for the first time, it's been 10 years, for the first time, and it's always a nightmare at Christmas because all the emotions, all the feelings, they come back. So it's always tough, and she always goes through something, and I know that, but she's never come to me until this Christmas and wrapped her arms around me and cried on my shoulder because she's finally at a place of, you know, healing enough to be that vulnerable and recognize how much she needs that. And it was just, to my heart, a beautiful moment of healing. I hope to hers also, but it took a long time to get there.
And for me, one of the greatest moments I've had, in many of these moments, but is when my oldest son, you know, he's saying, Dad, that hurt me. They picked on him. He was young. He was like 8. And I started crying. And he's like, what are you crying about, Dad? I go, because I get picked on too. I get picked on a lot. And he's thinking I'm like some superhero. You know, he's 8, you know, and that's when they think we're superheroes. And he's like, you know, hopefully he still thinks I'm a superhero, but I don't know if I've lost that at all. But at the end of the day, like, I remember I could see his eyes go, wait, like, it's okay to cry. It's okay. And I think right now in our culture, like, we got to cry more.
Yeah.
I think we're afraid to cry because people hurt people. I mean, people are hurtful people. You know, they're really hurting people. And I think we don't cry with others because we're afraid to be hurt. But what I tell people is they're going to hurt you anyways. Yeah. You know what I mean? Your kids or your husband or your wife or your friend or your uncle, because we're human. I don't know how to deal with crying or laughing or believing the most perfect way. Yeah. Right. So how can you just encourage, like, parents and kids out there, say, don't be afraid to cry with those that you love.
Yeah. It's so human. We have to cry, you know, we have to cry and we have to laugh. It's also so human, and it's the bridge to the divine. It's the bridge to the divine. Believing in someone unconditionally is divine. It's not of our own power. It may be of our will, but really, when you say, I believe in you, to say I believe in you to somebody with no, like, earthly earning of that, you know, like somebody who's, you know, not doing anything in the eyes of the world that's great, to say I believe in you anyway is very divine, because it says, you know, first of all, I forgive you. It's tied up with forgiveness, right? Like, to believe in your spouse, to believe in your kids, like, how much do you have to first forgive? And that is divine. That comes from the Lord. And, you know, crying and believing are very human emotions that can unite us and get us to the divine and be the bridge, and also bring them.
Yeah, and that's what it says in the word. It says, those who sow in tears reap in joy. You know, you can't have joy unless you cry. You know, you can't have joy unless you laugh. You got to laugh, you got to cry, and then you can believe. And that's why that, you know, article that you wrote, that's why I had you write about it. Because I believe that a lot of people want to get people to believe without laughing and crying, and they're missing these deep emotions. Like right now, there's a lot of, you know, you might hear about this artificial intelligence that's really growing rampant. You know, they talk about language, right? But what I like to say is like, language can only do so much. What about laughing? What about crying? And what about your faith, your belief? And so what are your thoughts about, like, with artificial intelligence, with this notion of laughing, crying, and believing? Like, how does it, you know, does it help that? You know, does it hurt that? The limited you might know about artificial intelligence. What are your thoughts?
I don't know much. Can it understand humor? It can? I don't know. I don't know enough about artificial intelligence. It's silly.
Well, it might know you're humorous, you know, because you're pretty funny sometimes, you know.
Listen,
it might not know whether I might be funny looking, but you know that might not. It might not be able to tell you that, but you know if you're humorous. But yeah, that's the whole point. Like,
right? It's not human, and that it's uniquely human. I think laughter and crying. Right? Can a robot? I don't understand the whole AI thing enough. It's creepy to me.
Yeah, and I think that's what we have to start thinking about. Like, what purpose do we have within the country and the culture and within the world of what's going on? And right now in this world, we need more people to laugh and cry than ever. We need, and not laugh at, like my daughter says, Dad, you know, you got to laugh with people, not at people. But I'm working on that one. You know, like, you know, I got to stop. Like, if you laugh at people, that's not encouraging. We're not conquering things here. No, but like, who would you say, you know, out of all your, you know, with the children and what's going on, like, who have you seen that's shown that death can be an encouragement? Like, have any of your children, like, really spoken that to you at a moment? I'm sure each of them have, but anyone in particular you can think of, oh man, or, you know, this really just spoke to me when they saw this death as an encouragement.
Something that is easy to relate. I mean, right? They've all had moments.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, being able. I think that the best time I see it is when they can encourage somebody else who's going through it.
Yeah.
You know, I think I can remember. You know, one of my daughter's closest friends, her brother died their senior year of high school, and of the whole class, you know, she was like, "Mom, can everybody come over?" You know, because right now they need to be here. You know, so it was a great gift to be able to be there and welcome them and cry with a lot of them and have a place where they could unite and cry together.
For sure.
You know, that wasn't a night for laughter, obviously, but
sure.
But crying is very united. And so, and I've seen that with both of them. You know, my oldest daughter has lost a few friends and had some other.
She's been able to rise out of that.
Yeah, you know, I don't want to sugarcoat that. It's been.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
A difficult one.
Just because, you know, death is an encouragement. It's taught you a lot. I tell my wife as I get older, when I go to a funeral, I'm more impacted than when I go to a wedding. Though I love weddings, I've been to a couple of weddings in the past, few months, and I can tell you that those are touching, and they touch my. But funerals for me, speak about, you've had these children die. What happens when you go to a funeral? Do you have to re-go through that every time?
Yes, but it's beautiful. I appreciate
that
question. I always joke because there's always laughter, right?
Yeah.
I love a good funeral.
Yeah.
It's just like this.
Wow. Yeah, that could be a sitcom, right?
I know.
I love a good funeral. It'd be all about killing people.
I love a good funeral mass.
It's all about killing the people you don't like. All right.
I love a good funeral mass.
Okay, all right.
It's the source and summit of all of our hope and our faith. But one of the most beautiful moments that my husband encouraged me with was at the funeral for my son, for Michael. And I mean, this moment is alive for me to this day. It encouraged me so much because, we had the wake and the whole, Jesus was in the tomb. Like he was in that coffin, this little, my son, my baby, and everybody coming through and trying to love us so beautifully. And it just was like so surreal. and going home and crawling into bed like empty and like I'm not gonna. How am I gonna live? How am I gonna live? And then waking up in the morning, going, I have to like get dressed and go. And how am I gonna do that? I was like a child dragging me. Like I cannot do that. And we miraculously got to the back of the church and we're standing there, behind his coffin to walk in for his mass. And I'm like, I just can't. I can't go in. I can't do that. I can't go do this. And he just so simply, he's so stoic, and he just said, you wouldn't wish him back here. And that's true. That's it. That's the truth. That's true. So if that's true.
Why do you say you wouldn't wish him back here? Why did that speak to you so much?
Yeah, because knowing, trusting, believing, hoping that he is alive in heaven, living where I will be.
Yeah, what do people do? I mean, I always think about that. Like, let's just say for a week I lived that there was no heaven. Would that change my life? Oh my, I don't know. I think like anybody that doesn't believe it has to change their life.
Yeah.
Like belief is what's probably gotten you through these deaths.
Yeah.
I know when I go to a funeral, I always think about like how much better of a person I could be, how much more I need to change, how much more I need to love, how much more I need to cry, how much more I need to encourage, how much more I need to hug somebody, how much more I need to high five that person who I don't even like and say, man, I love being around you.
Yeah, but what's beautiful, and we're like on this, it's not just because you're getting there.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to do that for anybody else in order to get to believe in that and get there, right? It's the whole idea that we can get others to go with us who might not otherwise have that chance.
So I guess like why death is encouraging also, I got a question for before the deaths, right?
Yep.
So before both of your children, young children died, a toddler and a teenager, before they died, are less people gonna go to heaven before or more people after they passed? Are more people knowing about heaven, knowing about faith, knowing about belief, tears? Did you cry less before or cry more after? Did you laugh more before or laugh more after? Did you believe more before or believe more after? What's your answer?
Yeah, after, obviously. After.
Well, what do you mean? But most people would say you cried alone more or something.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Or like you said, they'll go to drugs. You said before the podcast when we're preparing.
Yeah.
Or they'll go to drugs, they'll go to alcohol, they'll go to, addictions.
Yeah, divorce, suicide, all of it. Yeah.
So you have more belief, more tears, more laughter after they share about that. I mean, that for somebody, I mean, I don't know, for you, it might be like, that's obvious, but I don't think it is obvious.
Okay, fair point. You're right. Yeah, maybe it's not. I'm used to no, before Michael and Anna died, I was a goof troop. I was self-focused.
Goof troop, what is that? No, yeah, I like that. The definition of goof troop, where we've met it, if you don't know what goof troop is, it means you're self-focused.
Self-focused.
All right, goof troops.
Yes.
If you're any goof troops out there, you better wake up, you self-focused. All right, goof troop. So before your kids back, you were self-focused. I like this. Goof troop, self-focused.
I was self-focused. And Michael's death gave me, a heavenly and otherworldly focus and an others focus, But I remember another moment when Anna died. This is a life-transforming moment when Anna died. And we got called to the hospital.
Can't imagine the second time it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I was like, dang, this is rough. But then all of a sudden, and it was a surprise call, right?
It was such a shock, yeah.
I can't imagine the second time. So what was going through you?
Yeah, it was a middle of the night call. And we went to the hospital and I was pregnant. And, Bill was worried about me. So he didn't want to, he didn't tell me that she had died.
Yeah, of course.
He just said she was in a bad accident.
Yeah.
So, but I had this incredible consolation and vision from Our Lady, so I already knew she died, but that's a whole other story. But so that was an incredible story. But so we get to the hospital and I'm hoping against hope, even though I already know, I've already kind of had this consolation from heaven that Our Lady is with Anna and that it's time to say goodbye and that she's already gone. And so, but
so
of course,
you prepared yourself.
So I was preparing
for her that if she died, that was kind of like a prep. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yep. So we got to the hospital and, they let us in the room and said, of course that she's gone, and then let us go in to see her and say our goodbyes. And, and again, just such a surreal moment because I had just hours before seen her walk out the door, vibrant and full of life. And, here's this my beautiful daughter. And it was, I couldn't have changed that, but the Lord and I had a moment of like, there's a great choice to be made. You can choose life or you can choose death. You can choose to go forward and accept this cross and bear this cross and make the most of this cross and all of that, or not crumble, like, what, it's not really a choice. And so it just confirmed in my heart, he gives, he takes away, and blessed be his name in all things. So I chose, Lord, we're doing it. The only way out is through, and
you're going to make death an encouragement.
that's it. It's the only,
that's
the
kind
only
of the
choice.
choices you had to make.
Yeah.
How does death become an encouragement?
Yeah.
And I think so many people are wondering that.
Yeah.
For me, I've had people die like you've had, but I can remember my grandfather. I'm 12 years old. First person that ever died that I loved, that I really had a relationship with, my grandfather. And I'm in the rain as a 12-year-old boy crying, like hitting the floor. I remember that. It's like a vivid moment.
Yeah.
But how does that death become encouraging? For me, I started Family Fun Day. You know what I mean? Like, because I knew he'd want that.
Yeah.
He'd want to be joyful.
Yeah.
So how about for you? Like, is there anything you've incorporated in your family because of their death that's meaningful? Anything you've incorporated to remind yourself or to remind your family, things that you might do, little things that you might do that kind of like say, hey, this is something to be encouraged by, not something to just, because it is sad, it isn't easy. But is there anything that your family does that kind of remarks that, let's not forget our brother. Let's not forget our sister. Let's not forget our son, our daughter.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, little things like this, we go to the cemetery and plant flowers and we take time to.
That's not a little thing.
To be there together.
So you do that.
Yeah, we do that, a couple of times a year.
How do your kids do? Do they enjoy that, or is it kind of like,
it's mixed?
Is it hard?
It's hard. It puts it in their face. So so I think it's good. If they're not thinking about it, it forces them to think about it. And kids are awesome. My youngest kids, two youngest kids never met Anna or Michael.
Yeah.
I was pregnant with Olivia with number 9, and then number 10 came after. But when we go to the cemetery and we do that, they cry the most. It makes death very real for them.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's interesting, but they all process differently. They all process that moment of going there differently. Some of them it takes some time. Other ones are like, oh, okay, wow. And then by the time we leave, they feel better, like that we did, but we do it together, and we're all in the same boat with that, and whatever it is, and we can't be afraid of that. We can't try.
Is that difficult for you to do, or no? Is it kind of like a process?
It's a process. I mean, no, it's honestly, I always say, my trust and my faith and my hope and my belief is that they're just not there.
Yeah.
They're always with me.
Okay. Yeah.
So to me, when I go there, it's a ritual. It's a moment to honor them as our family and it's other things, but it doesn't,
So it always goes back to my favorite movie, like when they said Mustafa and Simba, when Mufasa's in the clouds, it's like, and then you're like, Simba's like, where are you, Dad? And then Mufasa's like, I will be with you always. And I'm like, yeah. So like, I whenever somebody says that person's still alive, I hear, oh, Dad, Mufasa, like for me, like, no, but I mean, I think that it's why people remember that moment in The Lion King, and that moment is because the same thing you remember that no, they're not dead, they're alive. John 11:25 says, as Jesus' best friend's dad, and he's raising him to life, the only person in the Bible, outside of Jesus, and that's been raised from the dead, right? That gift of Lazarus raised from the dead. Jesus said, I am the resurrection life. Whoever believes me, even if he dies, will live forever. We believe. And you know what? I can tell you, to be an encouraging person, you got to have belief. You got to have something more, because it's just so exhausting. That's what I want to talk about. The exhaustion of believing this is all life's about. Because I just picture like a kid getting bullied in school, because I mean, as you know, in our mission with Hard as Nails, like all the kids we meet and all the kids I've met, the millions, the tens of thousands, like in person that I spend time with. and hearing I'm bullied, I just want to give up on life. And if you're a kid and you're bullied, you just want to give up on life, and then you say, this is all I have. Is this world. And I think that that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Where we're at is that people's belief systems are really down right now.
Yeah.
And even those that believe, I mean, I know somebody's watching, I have faith. But how much do we really believe there's a heaven? I think you, and I'm not judging myself, but I am. I think you have a greater belief in heaven. And why I can say that death is encouraging is because you've dealt with heaven, hell, dealt with hell on earth, dealt with those exhausting, because I have 5 children. Like, I always go to events and I'll say, I wouldn't send my son to die for any of you. But you have given up your kids to God, and speak to that, like the culture of not believing in heaven. What's that doing to people right now? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's horrible. People don't understand, who they are. It starts with it. I think it starts with not having somebody to pass it on, to believe in them.
Yeah.
So, and to teach them their belief. So, it's trickling down exponentially, which is really sad, because I can look to the influences that I had and how much they believed in me. They gave me faith. They believed in God, and they believed in me. And when you know who you are as a child of God, a son and daughter in his image, and you have dignity, then you can believe in somebody else wholeheartedly, without reservation, without judgment. But
I can tell you, like, somebody might have seen the docuseries, or maybe they didn't. Mm-hmm. Over half of my team have never been baptized, or been taken, as they've been telling me this, I can't believe this. Like, that they don't have somebody to walk with them in their faith. They might have a grandmother, but maybe their mother or father didn't, and I just think that's the culture we're in right now.
It is.
The culture we're in is that probably half of the population in America, and maybe more in the world, I don't know the numbers for that, but I know in America, over half of the population don't recognize faith outside of maybe like a deist kind of look at it, the God out there, not the God in here, not the relationship with God. I think every single person, to get through what you've gotten through, if you're going to do it in a healthy way, needs a relationship with God. What are practical things on a daily basis you do to keep your relationship with God going? What are the things that you do personally that help you keep going? Because a lot of people have different things. Maybe you can give us some insight on that.
Yeah, it's different every day,
Oh, yeah, you're all over the map there.
First of all, I'm all over the map.
When you got 10 kids, you get the authority to be all over the map. That's the way I look at it.
I get the 15-minute late mother's dispensation.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Every meeting we have in this office, she gets it late. Well, you get 20 minutes. 20. The other mothers get 15.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Yes. I'll take every last one.
Double the kids and 2 that passed and are in heaven. God help you.
So funny. Mikey, my little saint of victory. I always call him, he's my saint of victory, because he is the bridge for me that opened my eyes and helped me get to heaven. And, the prayer that I have in relationship, because I came to relationship with Our Lady, with God, my Father, with Jesus, my brother, with the Holy Spirit. I came into relationship. And so that's just,
so you're saying Mikey encourages you still? Well, how does he encourage you?
Yep.
How does that work? You talk to him?
Oh, I always talk to him and Anna, but he's just with me. The lessons the person that I have become because of walking through his suffering and his death and all these years without him. He's always with me. He's part of me. He's a lot, he's, I don't know how to say that in a way that's probably.
He's your living Mufasa.
Yeah, he's my living Mufasa. Exactly. When you said that.
Mother!
Yes.
Mother! I am here. I told you death can be an encouragement, because we're talking about death and we're laughing more than most shows. If I'm talking to the CEO of some company, which I do on these shows, we're not laughing this much.
If you don't have laughter, I don't know.
I'll talk to the motivational speaker, and we won't laugh this much. No, But like, what are some other things that?
So prayer is critical. You got to find time for prayer. You know, we pray, a family rosary. Sometimes it's the family, sometimes it's a couple. We try. We do what we can. At least once a week we do them.
Yeah.
So I mean, prayer in various forms for me is really, and then the fruit of that is others. Service. Where there's, I don't know, the Lord always puts.
Pray and serve, you're saying. Pray and serve.
Yeah.
Pray and serve.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, to give his life for the ransom of many. Mark 10:45. The bottom line is we have to be people of service. And what do you get the most joy out of, serving as a mother, serving, within our mission, serving as a friend, serving as a stranger? What would you say for you? You think about that way of service, like it just brings me so much joy.
Well, this might be silly. I love to feed people.
No, man. What are you, Italian?
Actually, not even really. I'm married. I'm Italian by proxy.
So you're Italian. That's how we steal everyone. I mean, anybody knows that St. Patrick's Italian, but nobody even knows this.
Because there's only two kinds of people.
Italians and those who want to be, of course. And even the non-Italians agree with me all the time.
Yes,
9 out of 10 people agree with me. I don't know that. It's just, you want to be encouraged, eat Italian food, right? So you love feeding people.
Amen. I do.
I'm the same way. I don't like cooking it, but I love taking people out.
Yes, I'm moving as I get older. That's looking more and more attractive. But it's a gift. And think about it. When somebody wants to be fed, like my kids are so spoiled, they get my cooking all the time, and they snub their nose a lot. What is this? And then I don't like this. There's no food in this house. It's classic, right? There's no food in this house. I've got a pantry and freezers and a refrigerator full of food, and the missionaries will come over and they hear my kids say that and be like, there's no food in this house. Like, where is this enough? Yeah, I know. So they're spoiled by that. And so when somebody sits there and is hungry for what I can feed them, there's something about that that just
that fills you up.
It does. It fills me up. Yeah.
You've never invited me over for dinner though.
Oh my!
I mean, seriously, like this guy, me and Mary, the whole family. I want to bring everybody over, and Karen's never invited me. I can't believe all these years. How many years have we been working together?
Fake news. Fake news.
No, I like stay. I travel a lot, giving talks and moving and shaking. I like to stay home. So whenever she invites me, I go, all right. I discourage her by saying I'm busy, and then my wife goes over. I won't say because she feels bad for you, because she likes going over.
Because she loves me. I love her.
Really, I really, the whole goal of this podcast, if you're on it right now, you're the first time. If you're first time watching, why do you listen to this podcast? Because you're an encourager. Like, if you stop listening to this podcast, you just discouraged me. All right. I'm actually serious, because what podcast is out there that's all about finding ways to encourage people? And, if you're saying, well, I'm an atheist, if you're the most encouraging atheist I've ever met, I want you on this podcast. I'm encouraging all atheists. If you're the most encouraging Hindu, I want to know who you are. My brother's Hindu. You don't like Hindus? My brother's Hindu. Quit picking on Hindus. All right. My whole point for this show is that in my most discouraging moments, it wasn't the Catholic or the Christian or the Hindu or the atheist that came to me. It was God who sent all of the above or any of them in different moments. I've had atheists be a gift, and we've got to stop labeling people. Right now in our country, we label people so much. Look, my dad doesn't believe what I believe, but that's still my dad. And you know what? My brother doesn't believe what I believe, but it's still my brother. And I have a lot of people who believe what I believe, and they're a-holes. And they're a-holes. They're absolute a-holes. They gossip. They talk junk about each other. They say they hurt people. And you know what? I can be an a-hole at times. So maybe I need some of you out there to get on this show so we can encourage the world. But the whole point is that we've got to align ourselves with people who want to be encouraging. And sometimes I question and ask myself, what does that mean? So for you, like, What's most important right now in our country and our world to be encouraging with all these different belief systems, because there's so less who may fall in line with you or me or others? How do we be encouraging? What's your thoughts?
Authentically sharing our suffering and sharing in their suffering. I think that's where we intersect. We talk about that. You say that all the time. That's it. That's the shared human experience.
Yeah, and I've seen that with, I think what's helped me is the basketball players. A lot of them don't believe what I believe. I don't believe they believe. I just had recently one of them come to my house and he's wearing a Playboy shirt. You know what I mean? Like, now I'm going to say, to me, Playboy's discouraging, but you might say I'm a discouragement for saying that. Well, Hugh Hefner, if you want to say the most encouraging, is he still alive, that guy? I don't even know. But if he is, if any of his people, if you want to say you're the most encouraging person in the world, I'll have you on. Just make sure you have clothes on. All right. The bottom line, I'll let you on. You just got to make sure you got clothes on, that for me wouldn't encourage my wife or anybody else.
No, let's stay focused.
Yeah, let's stay focused. Hey, but the bottom line is that I still, whatever belief system these young people have had, what has brought us together is the suffering we endured. The suffering we endured. And so I'm going to share one suffering I have. You share one suffering you have. And I think everybody will say that encourages people. You know this better than anybody. For over 20 years, I'm at like 24 years, I'd say, where I've had this belief that I want to build gyms across the country where kids can come and they might believe or not believe. They might care about what I'm about or not care. But when they walk in that gym, they will be encouraged. They will be so encouraged that they might even stop by, not even to work out, not even to play basketball, but just say, I had the worst day of my life. The only thing I want to do is go to that gym to be encouraged. And I had an opportunity where I thought in my hometown that I could build this gym. And we were rolling and we were moving and great things were happening. And it didn't happen. But I can tell you in that discouragement, it's made me much more sensitive to people that have dreams. When a kid comes to me and says, my dream's to do this, I listen to them 2 times more than I used to. When a young adult's 22 years old and they come up to me and go, man, I want to do this, I don't question it or doubt it as much as I used to. You see, in that discouragement, it gave me a heart to believe in others' dreams even more, because that dream hasn't happened yet. And a lot of the dreams, as you know, that have been put on my heart by the good big dog above, have happened. And so for me, I just want any of you out there, like if you're crying, cry with somebody. If you're laughing, don't laugh, as my dad said, laugh with people. And really know that belief will help you. So what's some suffering you've been through in your life recently that maybe you don't see it as suffering, but it is suffering, a suffering that you've been through that's kind of given you a transformation in your life? Because I agree with you. We need to make a world where no one suffers alone. We need to make a world, and that's our vision at Hard as Nails. You can go to amazingnation.org where Karen works, and I just kind of help her with it. And I'm true. I'm like, what am I even doing anymore? I'm like, these people just they just tell me, all I do is they just tell me what to do all the time. Like, you do this, you're supposed, where are you? He's late. I mean, I used to make up things to do. Now it's like they tell me what to do. So now I'm saying I just help you out. So this mission. So let's help everybody out there not suffer alone. What suffering have you been through that's helped you?
Wow. There's so many choices.
Wow. She's got a lot of suffering. Not only is death encouraging, suffering is encouraging.
Suffering is encouraging.
Wow. If we could pull that off in 2 shows, that'd be miraculous.
My gosh, right? No, I mean, every child, that's in my mother's heart. It's like, I live for them. Like, you feel so much for your kids, and desire greatness and perfection. And when they don't, when they don't follow that hope and that dream, it's a great suffering.
What about for you personally though? Because I'm going to bust your chops. I don't usually challenge you much because, but no, like I agree. You're suffering your kids, like my kids, they go through so much.
Yeah.
But I remember I had this dad, and he said, I want you to help my son. I go, okay, well, what suffering do you go through? He goes, well, my son.
Yeah.
Right. And I go, no. I want to know what suffering you go through. And it was so hard for me the first time, couldn't share. Then I'd ask, hey, what's up for you? The second, the third time is always my son. What they go, I go, I'm going to help you. So then I ended up flying to his house in Columbus, Ohio, where we now have an office and a retreat center there and what have you. And I go to his house and I go, what suffering are you going? He goes, my son. Well, all of a sudden we're at this event and his niece is there. And we get these sheets where they write their challenges. And after the event, we read the sheets and we'll pray for any of the kids that were at the event, like what they're going through. And he decided to pray with me and to help me with these. And we're reading each sheet. And as the sheet goes back, his wife reads one that says, my uncle and my father are tearing this family apart. And the wife goes to the husband, read it. And he looks at me, he goes, hey, idiot. He goes, read this. He's a prize joker. He's like, read it. And so I go, oh, my uncle and my father are tearing this family apart. He goes, guess who the uncle is? And he goes, it's me. And what I'm sharing here is we share not just death of, like a physical death like you've been through, but a death saying, hey, if I die to this could heal. Well, he admitted he was wrong. He didn't go to Thanksgiving for a couple of years. He ends up going to Thanksgiving and he rekindles his relationship. And in this process, his son was cutting himself at the Passion of the Christ. Literally. Like if you looked at his legs, they were red like the Passion of the Christ. Well, his son just got married this year. He's been totally healed. His legs are now white, healed, which is miraculous. But I consider it, and it's just a challenge for all of us, me included. Like when our kids see that, we can say, hey, I was wrong. Hey, or I need to forgive this person. So just on that thought, just to push on you a little bit, because there are people out here saying, oh man, it's my sister. She's going through this. It's my brother. What's one thing on your heart? You're like, man, I just want to lay this, something suffering you've been through.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. There's again many choices.
Many choices.
I mean, would
just pick your best one.
One.
The one that I think could help somebody here that's sitting here. And I think you struggling with this, like I do. Like for me, like a big challenge for me is being, like anybody knows me, I'm a cheerful guy. I'm like, but people might not even see me like that.
Yeah.
Because like I've been rejected a lot. Like I'm not gonna lie and say when people have mocked me or people have gossiped about me that I didn't cry about that. Right. Like I cried about it a lot, and sometimes I cried alone, which is that's selfish tears. Yeah. Right. I'm a goof troop. When you're crying alone, you're a goof troop, right? So next time I'm crying alone, there's nothing wrong with that. But I really believe that we should cry with our wife. We should cry with our kids. Yeah. We should cry with them so they can know we're human. Yeah. So any thoughts? So if you were to, what would you go with? Well, I gave you a little time there, by the way. All right, because you were really rasping. You had so many things that you're.
I'm all over the place. Oh my gosh.
I love it.
Try being my spiritual director.
I love. Well, that's out, but I love it.
Yeah, poor guy. I'm such a strong feel. Yeah, I struggle with being swept up in my emotions. Yeah. When a feeling comes, it's hard for me to fight through that.
Yeah, for sure.
And so for my husband, that's probably a great cross. He's the opposite of that. Yeah. And so I'm a cross for him to bear. Yeah. Sure. So really, like, I mean, he's his own set of crosses. For me to bear. Of course. But like the amount of it's always a cross and a suffering. There's great joy and there's great grace, as you know, through marriage. But there's so much to walk through and to really work at and die to yourself every day. I realize my own inadequacies every day in terms of like how I let him down potentially. For sure. So I'm always trying to take an honest look at that and how have I honored him? Have I, taken care of the most important foundation of our life. But something you do with your relationship with your husband is you work really hard. I know in the past how many retreats you go on, how many times you find ways to go out on date nights, to go out on trips, to find ways to really act out that way that can speak to one another. And so something that I know
that can help a lot of people. And this is a big encouragement. And I think it's so important is that we're human. You know, something that's been coming up on the show a lot is people admitting, you're human, man. You ain't God. You're not perfect. And that's another thing that why faith helps is because we're not perfect.
No.
You're not perfect.
No, not
Your
even
husband's
close.
not perfect. I'm not perfect. My wife's not perfect, even though I mean, sometimes
we could make the case. We could make the
my
argument.
wife's she's up there. She's up there. But I can tell you that the gift of knowing that. And what have you learned in all that time you've been spending with your husband? What has been the growth? You know, you actually went on a retreat weekend with one of the other authors that's a part of this book, Clarence Schuler.
Oh, yeah.
And how did that help you?
Yeah.
You know, really rekindle life in your marriage as well as to grow deeper in understanding one another.
Yeah, it was just a great reminder of, you know, upholding like the oneness that we have pledged to be and committed to be, and not letting all the feelings and you know, the miscommunications and all those little things pile up. You know, it really takes great forgiveness day in and day out, and great communication day in and day out. And one of the things that like shocked me the most that I went into with my own, like, this quality of mine is probably so hard for him to take, like my own self-doubts and my own, you know, sinfulness and that, and at the end you write each other a love letter, you know, and the very things that I felt sorry for, you know, were the very things that he wrote about that he loved in me.
Wow.
That he, you know, that first attracted him to me, and that he still loves in me. And so it was just really beautiful. It was such a gift to hear him, you know, be able to express that.
And what you're saying is what we started the show about, is that we got to cry with our husbands and wives. We've got to laugh with our husbands and wives. We got to believe in our husbands and wives as well as our children.
Yeah.
And I think that's not happening enough. If there's one thing that, if anybody ever gets a chance to go to one of our live events, which, you know, doesn't always happen because we can only go to few places, but every live event is like 30 events, because you got this kid going up to dad saying, "I'm sorry, Dad," and then they're hugging. Then you got this dad going up to this wife going, "Oh man, I'm so thankful for you. I love you." And that's how I picture you and your husband at that retreat. And I think we need to kind of rekindle that in our own family. And why I say death is an encouragement, it's not just the physical death. We've got to die to ourselves. That's encouragement. You might physically be with your husband or wife. You might physically right now be with your kids. But you know the number one thing I hear from kids and wives and husbands who've had somebody die? They always say this: I wish I wish I would have said thank you. I wish I would have hugged. I wish I would have wrote that letter. Good thing, you know, you're writing those letters. You know, good thing good thing you're doing those. And for me too, I need to remind myself. So just really as we really build up all these encouragers. That's why I said you're atheist. Are you an encourager? Are you the biggest encourager in the world? When people are around you, that's what we're training you to be. The most encouraging person on the planet. And I think what my dad taught me, and I'm going to ask you this last question. It's an important question. My dad said to me, and I always think about it. He says, "Justin," he said, "I want to go through every day not having to apologize for anything, because I respected every person that I came in contact with." And I think that's just it's beautiful. It's a great thing to think about. Like, can I make it a day without? I don't think I've made it a day yet. I mean, I really don't. I say stupid things. I do stupid things. So even though I wrote the book, How to Be the Most Encouraging Person, I think maybe I wrote it for myself. I mean, seriously, I mean, like, maybe I just need it, because like, this guy is the most biggest a-hole on the planet.
No, your voice is in my head. I told you. I hear it all the time. I love that this is going on right now.
Yeah, no. So for you, like, what's the one thing you hope at the end, when it's all said and done and everything's gone and you're breathing your last breath? What do you hope that your legacy, you know, what do you hope you'll be remembered for? What do you hope that you'll really bring to this world?
The importance of the humanness that we're not that it's not about what we do, that it, you know, that their worth is not, my children's worth is not in what they've done, you know, that it's in who they are, that they're people that that they can be proud of, that the Lord is proud of, people after God's own heart. I don't know if that's really
No, that's great.
a legacy, but that would be my great hope that.
And just to close this podcast, what Karen Pullano is saying, who's has 10 children, 2, a toddler and a teenager that's passed away, right? Michael and Anna, that she shared so beautifully about, as well as her own goal to really be able to care about who her children are. What we're saying is today, go home and hug somebody. Go home and laugh with somebody. Go home and cry with somebody. What we're saying is make a stand. Take a stand now. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, right now. To be the most encouraging person on the planet, you don't need to be perfect. You need to be totally human. That's what Karen's calling you out for. She's asking you. And why is this important for your kids, for your husbands, for your wives, for your children, for your children's children? And maybe one day we'll be past, right? We'll be past. And they'll be saying, guess what? That was the most encouraging person I ever met. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, honestly, if there is not a more important, now, I don't like to say our podcast is the most important, but it's one of them. And why is it one of them? Because encouragement cannot be more needed right now in this country.
Yep,
So
I would agree.
Thanks for coming out, everybody. We got lots of podcasts. Yeah. Lots of them. If you haven't seen all of them, there's a boatload of them for you to watch. And there's CEOs, there's athletes, there's mothers, fathers, leaders, American activists. And I can tell you, most importantly, there's encouragers. And my question for you is, are you the most encouraging person on the planet? If you're not, you need to be here all the time, because that's why I'm here, because you're helping me to be more encouraging.
Thanks for listening to the Encouragement Conquers All podcast with Justin Fatica. Make sure to subscribe and follow to be notified when the newest episodes of the podcast go live. You can find contact information and important links in the show notes. Stay tuned for the next episode.